So here's our presentation for this week, our fourth week of the Whole30. And I'm going to be focusing on planning for reintroduction, but let's go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, get my face in a good place, I guess there. All right, so week 4, coming from the official timeline, often people are thinking, okay, day 28 is as good as 30. It's practically the same thing, right? And the answer is no. Of course, it isn't. And, days 29 to day 30, holy Oprah, it's almost over. What am I going to eat right now? I personally have had Whole30s where on day 31, I am ready for that chocolate bar. And I am diving. And I've had Whole30s where I feel like I can just keep going and, it's not a big deal. And so it really varies from person to person, and even from one time of your life to another. A Whole30, during a pandemic is not the same thing as a Whole30 at a normal time. And so keep that in mind and just kind of be noticing, where are you at right now? Yeah. And I will say, as we keep going in this presentation, that there are different ways to exit the Whole30, and they each have their pros and cons. So remember to assess your non-scale victories as you reach the end of the Whole30. And I'm going to send out a PDF, the actual official non-scale checklist. But keep in mind, where is your mood, your focus, your memory, your sleep and insomnia, energy upon waking up? How do your clothes fit? Can you get into those jeans that maybe were a little tight at the beginning of this experience? What is your stamina like throughout the day? What's your complexion like? Joints, any pain? Gastrointestinal, how are you feeling in terms of bloating or acid reflux, constipation, etc.? Has it changed over the course of the last month? And is it different than it was before this Whole30 experience? And then blood metrics. If you're in touch with your primary care provider with our office, what changes might have occurred to your blood glucose, your cholesterol, what's going on with your blood pressure, any changes at all? So keep in mind, we want to be looking at the whole picture here. It's really easy to just think of health as how much do I weigh because of how our society esteems a certain body type, but health is so much more than that. And the non-scale checklist really helps us to remember, oh, right, what is my mood like? That matters, and what is my sleep like? And how do I feel in my body? Those are components of health. And I love the non-scale victory checklist for acknowledging that and trying to promote our awareness of it. All right, so at the end of the Whole30, there's this great quote from Melissa Urban and Dallas Hartwig. It's natural to hesitate at the thought of making any changes, even if the change is a return to what was normal for you before. And the truth is, you don't have to go back to the way you used to eat. But keep in mind that the Whole30 was intended to be a reset, an introduction to the world of good food. I want to emphasize that you decide what comes next. You're driving the bus here. This is your health and you are in control. So keep in mind that change is hard and kind of weird, and you might be excited to just leap right back to where you used to eat. And that's what I want to cover next, the different ways people transition from a Whole30. There's the fast track reintroduction period, which is where you're following kind of the prescribed, suggested way of transitioning, where you are testing each food group we have been avoiding one at a time with breaks in between so you can really see the effects. Or a slow roll, where there is no timeline, you feel like you could eat this way forever, and you just do. You keep eating the Whole30 until you hit something exciting where you're like, oh, I actually want a piece of this cake and I want to see what it does. And then you do. And then there's the diving board, and I've been there. The diving board is where on day, and I kind of added this language, this is not from the Whole30, but where you just dive from day 30 to day 31 straight into a slice of pizza, maybe a beer, maybe a scoop of ice cream. You're just so excited to have freedom in what you can choose to eat that you eat maybe everything you feel like you've been denied. The benefits to that is that sense of just, I'm not being held back. And of course, the cons to that are that while you might have freedom in that moment, you're missing out on building your sense of bigger food freedom just to know what food feels good in my body and how much do I want foods that don't feel good in my body to be a part of my life. That's the concept of food freedom that the Whole30 is really about encouraging us all to experience. So when you reintroduce foods, some guidelines, pay attention to how you feel. Really check in with your body throughout the day. How's your digestion, your mood, your sleep? And then based on how you feel, start thinking, how much do I want cheese to be a part of my diet in the future? And if you notice something that does not sit well, then just pay attention to that and wait to reintroduce anything else until the symptoms go away. So if you have GI upset, wait until it's normal, wait one more day, and then reintroduce something new. You want your system to return to a normal state before you rock the boat again, if that makes sense. I personally do not feel that the fast track reintroduction concept is very intuitive. And so I really want to outline it for you because I think understanding makes it easier to do it. So, or at least to decide if you want to do it. I'm not trying to push anyone into anything here. So day 1 on the fast track reintroduction, you evaluate gluten-free alcohol. This is a random selection. It could be legumes or grains or dairy. If you're really excited to have sugar in your coffee, maybe it's sugar that you add back in on day 1 of the reintroduction. The point is you pick one group of something. So gluten-free alcohol is what I chose for day 1. And you keep everything else Whole30 compliant. Okay. And you have a glass of wine or a glass of cider or a mixed drink after dinner. Keep it to 1 or 2 drinks. Don't go overboard. And really notice how you feel. What's your sleep like that night? What's your mood like? And what is your digestion like? Go back to the Whole30 for the next 2 days. And then on day 4, evaluate legumes or whatever you're excited to add in. And when you evaluate legumes for that day 4, you might have peanut butter with apple slices for breakfast. You might have lentils with lunch, beans with dinner. We're not doing one food item at a time, one food group at a time. Okay. If you have concerns, you are sensitive to these foods, then you're going to want to do your own version of reintroduction where you maybe do one item at a time and you work with your doctor, making sure that there's not like a food allergy danger situation. That's a big red flag. Work with your doctor if you're really concerned about a dangerous reintroduction. Okay. Please. So back to if that's not the case. So you'd evaluate legumes, keep everything else Whole30. So no alcohol, no dairy, nothing else. And then go back to the strict Whole30 for 2 days. What you're doing here is kind of like dropping in a stone into a calm pond, looking for ripples if they happen, and then giving the water time to kind of calm down before you drop in the next stone. That's what this is, okay? So day 7, evaluate non-gluten grains, keep the rest of the diet Whole30 compliant, then do the Whole30 for 2 days. Day 10, evaluate dairy, keep the rest of your diet Whole30 compliant, return to the Whole30 for 2 days, and so on until you're done. The Whole30 fast track reintroduction does not add sugar back in as a separate item, although it's encouraged that you do if sugar is still kind of a sugar dragon thing for you. You would not want to evaluate gluten containing grains by having cake with breakfast and pie with lunch and cookies with dinner. That's not the same thing as having a piece of toast with breakfast or oatmeal and then pasta with lunch. Okay. On day 15, the idea is that you decide how you move forward. You decide how you take what you've learned and what you want to eat, moving forward, so that in the future, it's your own guidelines, not the Whole30 structure that decides how you eat. Okay, slow roll reintroduction. I'm almost done here, I promise. I just want to, again, go over this because I don't think it's intuitive. It's a new way of thinking about transitioning from a diet or a way of eating. So slow roll, no timeline. This is great for people who are loving the Whole30 right now and don't want it to end. You just keep eating this way until you hit a point where you're like, oh, these incredibly special homemade cookies with locally, harvested walnuts and handmade chocolate chips. Man, I really want to try that. And then you do, and you enjoy it, you savor it, and then you pay attention. How do you feel afterwards? The benefits are that you get to maintain your energy and your health that you've gathered up in this experience, and you might savor that cookie even more. The downsides are that by not setting aside 3 dedicated days to introducing each food group, you're kind of testing in the wild, like out in your normal life where there isn't that same structure. So maybe you're testing ice cream at your anniversary dinner and then you have abdominal cramps for the rest of the night. Not ideal. That's part of what the Whole30 reintroduction is designed to do here, is that we're coming in with planning and intentionality to really test out experimentally, experientially. What does this food feel like? What happens? Now I know that if I have pizza with the family, I'm going to be suffering for the rest of the night. That's not worth it. I'm going to have my own meal I bring. You know, that's the point. And so again, this is my last slide. To sum up, the point of the Whole30 is that you decide what food freedom feels like, and you kind of claim your own vision of how do I want to be eating in my life? And what helps me to feel my best self? And so I encourage you to start thinking, what does your food freedom look like? And what does your food freedom feel like in your body and in your life? And that is it. So I'm going to stop my screen share and my recording.